In this lesson, you'll learn how PHP scripts make decisions based on conditions and comparisons. The basic structure of a conditional statement is based on human language. You wrap the condition to be tested in a pair of parentheses and precede it with the keyword if. If the condition equates to true, the code between the curly braces is executed. If it equates to false, the whole block of code is ignored. If you want something else to happen when the condition fails, add the keyword else after the closing curly brace and wrap the alternative code in another pair of curly braces. So if the condition is true, the first block of code is executed, and if the condition is false, the second block is executed instead. But you're not limited to just two options. You can chain conditions like this using else if, which is normally written as one word. It still works if you add a space between else and if, but else if as a single keyword is more usual. When you chain conditions like this, only the first one that equates to true is executed. So if the first condition is false, but the second one is true, the code inside the second pair of curly braces is executed. But if both are true, only the first block is executed. Much of the time, conditions involve comparing two non-Boolean values using one of these comparison operators. One of the most important points to note is that PHP uses two equal signs to test whether two values are equal. A common mistake is to use just one, which always equates to true. Why, you may ask? Well, it's because a single equal sign assigns a value, and that equates to true. It doesn't compare two values. The difference between equal and identical refers to the data type. For example, if you're comparing two variables that contain the same value, they're equal. But they're not identical if one variable contains a string and the other contains a number. It's a subtle difference that you probably won't need to worry about in the early stages of working with PHP, but you do need to be aware of it. Another message to take away from this table is that the exclamation mark is used to mean not. Let's put that into practice. In this file, I've got a variable called name, and the value is Arthur. Then I have a control structure here with if, else if, and else. In the first condition, I'm testing to see if the name is equal to Arthur. In the second one, if the name is equal to Marvin. And if it's not equal to either of them, then the code in the third block will be executed. So let's test that in a browser. And as you would expect, we see I could never get the hang of Thursdays. Name is equal to Arthur, so the first block of code is executed. Now what happens if I change the A in Arthur to lowercase and save it? Refresh the browser. This time the last block of code is executed. The reason that happens is because the spelling is not identical. Here we have Arthur with a capital A, and here we have Arthur with a lowercase a. They must be exactly the same. Now let's see what happens if I make that common mistake of using just one equal sign instead of two. Refresh the browser. And this time I've got this terrible pain in all the diodes down my left-hand side. The second block of code has been executed. And that's because in this condition here, Marvin has been assigned to name. That succeeds, so this condition then becomes true. So that's obviously not what you want. And although I said that it's something which is often a mistake made by beginners, you'll be pleased to know that more experienced people make that mistake quite often too. So it's important to check that you've got double equal signs when you're trying to compare two values if you get unexpected results. At the moment, we're testing only one condition for each block. Very often you need to test more than one condition, and you do that using logical operators. The three most important logical operators are listed here. The first two are used for multiple conditions. When placed between two conditions, two ampersands mean AND. Both conditions need to be true. Two vertical pipes mean OR. Only one of the conditions needs to be true. The last logical operator, the exclamation mark, is used with a single variable or expression. Placing it immediately in front of a variable reverses its Boolean value. So if A is true, preceding it with an exclamation mark converts it to false, and vice versa. So let's try a multiple condition. I'm going to change that back to an uppercase A for Arthur, and I'll add a new variable called today and set its value to Thursday. And if name equals Arthur, then two ampersands today equals Thursday. Just save that and see what happens. Refresh the browser. And both conditions are true, so the first block of code is executed. Right, let's change today to Wednesday and add in a second condition here, or today equals Wednesday. And if we save that and refresh the browser, the second block of code is executed. Name is Arthur. That matches here, that's correct. But today is not Thursday, it's Wednesday. The name is not Marvin, so this is false, but we're using OR, and today equals Wednesday, so that matches. These are just very simple examples of how the decision-making process works in PHP. It's based on control structures using if, else, and else if. One or more conditions placed between parentheses are evaluated, and the code is executed in the block that follows the first whole condition that equates to true. These simple examples have just one line of code in each block, but often they will have many more.